Hello and welcome to the Vinyl Factory podcast with me, Henry Raby, and my co-host, Natalie Quatermass. On the Vinyl Factory podcast, we talk about art that tries to make a difference in the world through political lyrics and stories, community engagement, activism, and social justice. And this is a Factory Floor bonus episode where we talk to one specific person, event, organisation or artist. And on this episode, it's Gregg Deal, the lead singer and spoken word artist of Dead Pioneers. I recorded this interview in Leeds on their last UK tour, and what a bloody amazing gig it was. It was this packed out, sweaty and powerful show. Dead Pioneers are a powerhouse Native American-led punk band born as a dynamic extension of Gregg's performance art, seamlessly blending music with critical cultural commentary. They're rooted in the same themes of identity and resistance that define Gregg's visual work, and the band's sound and act as a political platform for addressing the complexities of the Indigenous experience. Dead Pioneers' third album, Wagon Burner, is out today, literally today, the same day this episode is going up, on Hassle Records. And what I love about Dead Pioneers is their no-nonsense approach to music and politics. Wagon Burner, on first listen, might be their most powerful, unapologetic album so far. It's intersectional, it's unique, and Gregg and the band ain't taking this shit any longer. I've peppered this interview with Dead Pioneers tracks, as well as The Underside of Power by the band Algiers, because Gregg references working with members of that band in the interview. If you like this episode, I'd recommend you go all the way back to episode number 7, where we interviewed feminist punk band Petrol Girls. Petrol Girls have gigged with Dead Pioneers before, and lead singer Ren joined the band on stage for a song at that Leeds show, which was just, mind-blowing, incredible. And if you like your punk bands from the US, on episode number 34, I also interviewed Alexia from Destroy Boys, who are a band from Sacramento in California. We are a DIY podcast, so we really appreciate any support you can give us. So if you could smash that subscribe button like you're smashing a Nazi in the face, give us a share, pass on to your mates, put it on social media, find us on social media, give us a 5-star review. It massively helps us. And if you use Spotify, you can go to a playlist of all the music we've played on the podcast if you search for Vandal Factory playlist. That's it. Thank you very much for checking us out. On to the interview with the lovely Gregg Deal from Dead Pioneers. Key Club in rainy, miserable Leeds, and I'm joined by Gregg from Dead Pioneers. Hello, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm good, thanks.
Yes, welcome to a rainy Leeds. So you've, I think, been to the UK before for shows, but have you toured much in the UK?
No, we were here last year for 2 shows, and it was like, what was that, May? I think it was May. We just did a London show, and we did I don't remember where else we were. It was a college town. This is like our first time coming back and actually spending, some quality time here in sunny England.
Good old Blighty. So I watched a clip of you perform, and you did a sort of introduction to yourself and the set. And I usually say, tell us a little bit about yourself, but I wonder could you share that introduction for our listeners if they don't know who you are?
Where I'm speaking Paiute?
Yeah,
sure. The tradition is, as Native people, if you can do it, to always introduce yourself in your language. And this is essentially important too in the United States, where there's a lot of non-Indigenous people, and I think it's important for them to hear our language while they, are on our homelands in various capacities. So anyway, it just goes hamu nu Gregg Deal mina nea nu kiu takara nu kumu nu naa nu tubudu nu gubutu yarawara, which is to say, my name is Greg. I'm a member of the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe. I am a husband and a father, a maker of things, a disruptor of spaces, and yeah, that's me.
Thank you for coming to disrupt our spaces today. I was reading about the origins of Dead Pioneers, but I think it started as a performance piece. Could you talk about that, your sort of origins of creating work and how that became this cool punk band that's tearing up the place? Yeah,
I gained national notoriety in the United States through performance art, which really is just living art. I went to school for painting, so it's a little bit off, but I spent time with James Luna, a performance artist, an Indigenous performance artist, who's really somebody who paved a lot of the way for Native performance art in general. And I had a mentorship with him at the Venice Biennale in 2005, and it really just changed my view. But the performance art piece that this came from was actually more of a spoken word piece, a series of vignettes that I would share stories about how I grew up, why music was important in my household. My father was like an old hippie, listened to protest music like Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young and Bob Dylan and things of that sort. And my mom had more of a pop sensibility, so it was, David Bowie and Prince and Michael Jackson and that sort of thing. And those things played a huge part, and then they just never harassed me for what we listened to or what I listened to, and kind of found my own way in through punk. And so the performance piece, which was called the Punk Pan-Indian Romantic Comedy, was essentially me telling these stories that I think illustrated not just being an Indigenous kid growing up in America, but also sharing the fact that there are American experiences as a Native kid. And so, we can sing ceremonial songs, we can go to our homelands, and we can do the things that we do, but we can also enjoy Kendrick Lamar and Black Flag. So, and within that, each vignette had a segue, and it was a musical segue generally. And I performed it once and got a grant to sort of expand it and create our own music for those segues. And that's how I met Josh and Shane, one of our guitarists and our drummer. And then COVID happened and everything shut down, and we were trying to figure out how to make it. But I had never been in a band, never had the opportunity to do that despite my desire to. I've always been drawn to music and stage, but it was hard to kind of figure out how to pull the trigger, as it were. But I wrote a ton and had been writing for a long time. It was easy to convert a lot of my spoken word to lyrical play and to kind of figure out how to articulate myself in, more of a pithy, poetic way. And what we struggled. We floundered with that for about a year. I was at a residency in Florida in 2021, and I met Lee Tesh, who's our bassist, but also the lead guitarist for Algiers, a sort of post-punk industrial gospel band out of Atlanta. It's so fantastic musically and just fantastic.
Broken shards, all that we are at some time. Scatter around what you try to control your life. It's not a matter of fate, it's just a question of time when we all fall down. It's not a matter of fate, it's just a question of time when we all fall down.
I shared with him a spoken word piece I'd written the night before in about an hour, and was like, I feel like this might work. And I explained to him what we were trying to do. And he and I just got together and just hashed it out. Lee's very much a doer. He figures everything out, and we just pushed through. And we were on a campus that had a recording studio and a shitty drum set, and we grabbed another musician, and we just set up microphones, figured it out, like how it was going to work, and press record. And that was in less than 2 hours we did that, and press record, and we had recorded the first iteration of Bad Indian. I sent that to Josh and Shane, and we were just like, okay, we know what we're trying to do now, because we had a general idea of spoken word with punk riffs or something along those lines, and but now we had something to work from. Later, the following year, I think it was probably summer 2022, we had Lee out with Shane and Josh, and we did a writing session, but I just had a solo exhibition that weekend, and found myself not feeling well by the end of the day, and took a test, and I was COVID positive, and so we had to stop. But we wrote like 8 songs in just that one session, that one day. And we did eventually make it into a recording studio and recorded, and just kind of hit this place where it was like we weren't sure what, like, I mean, we had no expectations, so I mean, might as well put it up on streaming. Oh, like there's some response to it, we might as well press some records, which for me was more like a milestone, or like a, you know, a bucket list thing. I get to make a record, and was concerned more about the art of it than anything else. There was no effort to try to find relevance, you know, in middle age with a band that I have no business starting, but like we were all in it, and it was artsy, and it was fun, and it was cool, and it felt creative, and it just was, to me, another medium. But once we released, it took off. It turned into something else.
That must have been exciting as someone who's worked in sort of solo performance art or visual art for a long time. So my art form is also poetry, spoken word. To suddenly go, like it's a collaboration, it's with other people, and it's music. Was that exciting? Was it challenging? What was that like, sort of in that space, working with other artists? Yeah. No, I mean, it was just so different because I mean, I've done collaborative work before, but nothing like that. And just sincerely trusted how much everybody trusted me, having not really done this, and but also how much I trusted them in the process as well. There was no frills, there was no ego, there was no nothing. It was just like we just wanted to make something. I think, you know, Josh, Shane, and Lee all felt an incredible responsibility to my voice as a Native person, and I mean, it's just such a beautiful sort of illustration of allyship, and just them really enabling me to kind of do what I wanted to do. It wasn't until the second record that it became less enable and more accomplice. Like we're all doing it together. And it's a beautiful thing. To me, I mean, I went to school for painting, and, you know, I still paint and do murals and conceptual work, and I've done film work, and I've done, you know, poetry work, obviously, and, you know, the performance art has been a big part of it. But because I've worked through so many different mediums, to me, it was just another medium. I kept having to repeat that to myself, because, like, my wife of 27 years is like, what are you doing? Like, you're not starting a dad band, you know, in your 40s. Yeah. And but I just kept telling myself it's the art of it, and I think that's actually important, because we aren't 5 guys that are looking for relevance in what someone might perceive as a twilight of a musical career. We are creating something that is rooted within an artistic message that I have been developing and articulating for over 20 years, through activism and through art and public speaking and all of those things. And so it's connected to a larger thing that helps justify it. Now, when somebody comes to the table and hears us for the first time, they don't know any of that. And so it's interesting to me that, like, there's these 2 lives that sort of exist in the same place without folks really even knowing.
A woman once asked me my Indian name, and I said, "It's Greg." And she was so disappointed. She was like, "No, it has to be Red Eagle or 2 Rivers or Gray Skull." I said, "Yes, wait, is that for real?" No, I said, without her realizing my brief but generationally relevant He-Man joke. The tell her that while Indian, I'm also having an American experience too. I finally said to her, how about walking eagle? And she said, yes, but is that true? I said, yes, it's totally true. And I never had the heart to tell her that the only time an eagle walks is when it's too full of shit to fly. Because I'm a bad Indian.
There's a humor on those albums, and I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about, like, do you actively seek to find like the it's very dry, deadpan, almost gallows humor, but it is there. Do you seek that? Are you trying to find that, or is that just come out because to the old cliches? If you don't, if you wouldn't laugh, you'd cry about it. Like, you have to like find some of that, like the humor in these racist experiences.
Yeah, no, I mean, deadpan's certainly my wheelhouse, but this kind of goes to this misconception of stoicism amidst Native people, and yeah, I mean, I suppose to a certain degree, you know, hard to read faces. I've got a proper angry, resting Indigenous face. There's something about us culturally, Native people, that we are actually really funny people. And if you spend enough time around Native people, that's just the humor. It is the sort of deadpan, dry humor. It is really making fun of everybody and everything, to the degree that if like you're with a Native person and they're not giving you a hard time, it's because they don't like you. And so I think it has cultural relevance. You know, in Bad Indian, there's that line that, like, you know, I give this woman and tell her my Indian name is Walking Eagle, and that, you know, the only time an eagle walks is when it's too full of shit to fly. That's an old Charlie Hill joke, a comedian from, you know, from the 70s and 80s, and he was one of our big comedic heroes. And all of his jokes, if you go listen to them, they're like these funny little sarcastic one-liners, and some of them are a little dark and like kind of funny, and that's kind of an interesting aspect of our experience. You know, I don't think it's too different than, you know, Jewish people in the Holocaust. Like, you know, there's so much humor around, you know, Jewish writers and what they're saying and what they're doing, and, you know, maybe there's something attached to the trauma of that, but it is definitely a survival skill, I think. Native people sitting around cutting up is a pretty normal thing. And you have to be on guard because, you know, a pack of Native women they'll size you up and cut you down real quick.
I'll watch out if I ever visit the States. I'm sort of, I've never been myself, but like I'm seeing a lot of things coming out of America through social media, especially in the last few months with the ramping up of ICE. And I wondered about those gigs that you're playing, those punk spaces being places for people to come and cut loose and be angry or find community. And I just wondered, have you found a shift in the few years that you've been a band as in being part of like more live gig spaces in that people are needing a place to fight everything? Like, it's not just colonialism, but it's transphobia. Well, it's all wrapped up, isn't it? Colonialism, transphobia, and racism. So yeah, I just wondered about that experience, about community building.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything is sort of ramped up in a way that it's not just a casual statement of inclusivity. It's really much bigger than that. Being surrounded by like-minded people, even for a few hours, makes you feel better, makes you feel safe. And we try within our shows to make sure that people know that we're all there. And while, you know, much of the music may sound angry, the anger is also rooted in just the love of understanding how important this stuff is for us individually and as a community. We found in the U.S. that, like, you know, people are showing up. We nearly sold out an 1,100, you know, capacity venue on January 3rd. And, yeah, it was beautiful. It's just absolutely beautiful. And it reminds me of the difference between, like, a circle jerk show and like an idol show. There's sort of a new generation of artists that are coming through that are saying the things that need to be said and saying it unapologetically, but also reminding everybody to take care of each other and how important that is, because I think as punk rock has evolved, it has reminded us that community is the surviving factor, that we have to have community. And community, if you're lucky, community starts at home with a good family. And if you're not so lucky, you have your found family. But that's where the community starts, and then it expands to your network of friends and people and people you share space with, the barista at the coffee place, the co-workers that are part of your union, all of those things are part of that community, and music allows an opportunity to come together in every form, and I think it's a really beautiful thing. I've always been a part of it. I've always loved it, but like to be on the end of it that we are is like really humbling, to be honest. I think it's really beautiful.
Some of the videos I've seen that have felt really affecting for me and is lots of song, people singing, and maybe that's from a gospel perspective, of like big harmonies in opposition to ICE, or people like drumming and playing like loud music to keep ICE agents awake. And maybe there's a little liberalism of it, of like, we can save the world through a song, but it does seem very. It does feel very America of like, there's lots of different roots of different music and different ways of building community in response and anger.
Fascist, white supremacist, unprincipled, ego nihilist. You claim to believe in something true, rebranded hate, but it's nothing new. I will gladly punch you in your white power face, make you feel my red power race. Nazis, fascists, and incel scum, go back to where you came from. Nazi teeth, litter the ground, your demise makes it sound. Nazi teeth, litter the ground, your demise makes it sound.
You just put out a new single, which is called Nazi Teeth. What's that about? What's Nazi Teeth? What's the theme of that?
I mean, it's so poetic. It's hard to point a finger at exactly what it is. We went out on tour with Pennywise and Propagandhi and Comeback Kid and another opening band, Iron Roses, which is a predominantly queer band. And you learn a lot when you spend time with other people. And of course, love Pennywise and, love Comeback Kid. And it was great to meet Iron Roses. And Propagandhi, from a political standpoint, is this band that just really has a lot of incredible messages besides just being pretty incredible musicians. But when we left that, I realized we didn't have a proper sort of anti-fascist, Nazi or neo-Nazi song. And so we borrowed their song, The Only Good Fascist is a Very Dead Fascist. We played it a few times, but really we're just like, we need this for the moment, but we need to write our own song. And that's the first one. There's another one that's coming up as well that's definitely along those lines as well. It sounds silly because, how long have we been talking about neo-Nazis? And I remember the first time I saw a real neo-Nazi, I was about 12. And I remember the first time I punched a neo-Nazi, I was just a few years older than that. And all of that, was a thing and didn't become a thing, and it just sort of hid in plain sight. And I remember when American History X came out, I think in 1999, and everyone's like, what's the point of this? Because they just didn't see the relevance of it. But there's a bunch of us that know what the relevance of that is and that it still exists. And now we're in this weird place where it's so obvious that it's happening, and that our current administration in the United States is recycling old Nazi tropes and ideas and imagery and statements, and which is ironic because all of those bastards got those ideas from looking at the United States and how they handled Native people and black slaves all the way up into Jim Crow, and it's just insane to watch what's happening to the degree that it seems stupid, but you have to say it out loud. And so that's what Nazi teeth is just saying it exactly what it is, that you have to be anti-Nazi, anti-fascist, anti-white supremacist, and understand the history enough to know that the only way to stop one of these people, we can make loud statements, but you have to be willing to fight too, because that's the only way that the Nazis were stopped, was through violence. And that's unfortunate, and nobody wants to be violent, but we got to protect our community, we got to protect our own, and we got to get rid of people who are trying to amplify and perpetuate hateful ideas that affect and oppress other people.
In the UK, we've obviously seen this reform of this nasty party, the Reform UK Party. They did have a bloodied nose this week because they did lose a by-election, which was, I was like, oh, it's a done deal, Reform are on the march, but maybe there's a little chink in the armour, a little bit of hope. Yeah. But I was going to ask, what it feels like sometimes the UK is a little bit behind America, so we get like a sort of, you get like Clinton, and then we get Blair, and then it was Trump, and then Boris Johnson, and then Biden, and then we got Starmer, and now you've got Trump again, and we're looking down the barrel of... So I'm like, okay, like what's coming next? Another like far-right power that comes in the UK. And so I guess my question is for artists, like, you know, any advice for us how we need to like organize and fight and create and for what might be coming?
Yeah, I mean, I don't subscribe to the nationalistic idea that, you know, the United States is the greatest nation on earth. I think that's crap. We're very clearly an imperialist empire, which has been turned on its head in such a way that Trump is doing the things that he's doing. I mean, as we're talking, you know, our country and Israel is bombing Iran and killing citizens in the process. And there's a couple things with that. One is that, like, of course, Trump is violent. I mean, we know from the Epstein files that he is a violent person who revels in cruelty. But you can also see that if you have eyes in your head. But the other thing is that also his rise to power has been enabled by, honestly, I mean, you could point at Nixon, you could point at Reagan, you could point at George Bush Sr., you could point at Bill Clinton, you could point at George W. Bush especially, and you can just see this breakdown through government, these things that have created a pipeline for what's happening right now. And while I don't subscribe to that idea of like us being the greatest nation, it is very clear to me that Trump is the probably single biggest component of emboldening conservative politics around the world. Like suddenly, you know, we're seeing conservative parties and conservative individuals standing up and proudly saying some pretty repulsive things. It's strange seeing that happen in a place like Germany, and everybody's pretty mad about it. You know, I think from an artistic standpoint, like you just have to make. You have to make for a few reasons. You have to make because you have to make, you know, and I think that, you know, for my people, artists are medicine people. It's medicine for ourselves, but it's also medicine for our communities. And you have to just make and create and get things out there. And it's unfortunate that, you know, we're in these capitalistic societies. And so, you know, sometimes we have to make a living and we have to sell work in order to make that happen. But what an opportunity for people to support the artist is making work. You know, we should be supporting our activists. We should be supporting our disruptors. We should be setting up these community spaces to allow us to take care of one another while we fight the powers that seek to oppress us. But that happens by just making. You just have to put one foot in front of the others. And honestly, if you take a half step today, you're still moving forward. It doesn't matter how slowly or how quickly you're doing it. You just have to keep moving forward. And we have to keep making art because art is the culture keepers. We are stating what's happening within the moment, and whether that's music or writing or, you know, painting or murals or even, especially in some cases, graffiti, you know, making these statements out loud might only matter to one person. One person might see your statement and feel a way about it and be moved by it, but that's all it takes, because then that person's going to tell their friends, and then that's going to, it's just going to spread. The message continues to spread. In the U.S., it's really hard because it's a very big country, and a significant amount of people are sycophants and bootlickers for Trump and for police and for ICE and for everything else. But you still have to do it. And I think it's important to just make, even for yourself, because we're all going to go crazy otherwise. We can't have that.
Beautiful. Well, on that note, we're going to hear a piece of music. Is there a song you'd like us to play that you want people out there to listen to and take away with them?
Idols forever. I just have, they don't know it. I have a total love affair with Idols, because it very much is in that space of love and compassion, but also anger and unbridled indignation. And there's that.
If we could play one Idol song, what's the banger that you like played?
I'd say Car Crash. Yeah, off of Crawler, which I think is a perfect record. So Car Crash.